This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is brought to you by Lexipol, the experts in policy, training, wellness support, and grants assistance for first responders and government leaders. To learn more, visit lexipol.com. That's LEXIPOL.com. Now let's get into the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. My name is Rachelle Zemlok. I'm a fire officer way up north, Wisconsin, and I'm just super happy to be here. I also write a little bit for Fire Rescue One, have my hands on a lot of other things in the fire service, and very, very grateful to be here. And I wouldn't be here, and I'm not alone today. First and foremost, we have the editor-in-chief, the commander that I like to call her, Janelle Fosquet, who tries to keep order to all my madness. Thank you for being here, Janelle. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. And I'm so thrilled that we have one of our favorite friends of the show back today, Dr. Z.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Z is back to help you, which also, help me. Like
Mostly
helps
help
helps me. Yes, mostly help me, but help all of us here in the fire service. I like to say you're kind of our BES, or Better Every Shift clinical psychologist, because this is the third time you've been with us. We've actually kind of done some cool things. We've, not that I officially pulled up sat in the couch there and had a session with you, but we go back a little bit. We talked about a lot of different things in the fire service, about relationships, about mental health, about crew relationships, about building resilience. And we had you on a year ago, and I think it's just great to bring you back on, kind of see what you're up to, talk a little bit about resilience. And I honestly, for our listeners, I wanted to share a little bit of my journey the last year. It's been kind of challenging, yet rewarding. And I feel like I'm in a great place due to not only all the wonderful people that we have on the show, but just some of the things that I've done and advice that I've taken from you. So I thought it was great to have you back on. So welcome again, Dr. Rachelle Zemlok. How are you doing,
So
Doc?
happy to be back. Yes, I love chatting with the two of you. So thanks for having me back.
Well, we love it too, because the show notes behind the scenes, which Janelle does an unbelievable job at, I look at them and then I just go where I go. But first and foremost, for those that have not heard of you, you need to Google. Where can we find more about you, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Put my name in Google and my website will come up, First Responder Family Psychology. But if you just put my name in there, it'll come up. And you'll see about, therapy services that I do for first responders, spouses, couples. I also do some speaking, traveling on different wellness topics, speaking to line level all the way up to chiefs organizations. So yeah, you can find lots of blogs, lots of information for families. I know we're not here to talk about families today, but that's kind of my niche. And I have a book out, Firefighter Family Academy. So lots of things out there, but yeah, Google my name.
Well, and you're married to a firefighter,
exactly,
so you walk the walk.
I am a fire spouse. I'm from Northern California, so East Bay area. And my husband's a fire captain. He's going into his 14th year currently, and we have 2 young children. My daughter just turned 4, and I have a son who's 7. So we are living the fire life. Schedules are crazy and all over the place, but we bend and move with it. And part of our resilience is navigating all the things in order to manage this life.
Yeah, you're a licensed clinical psychologist, and you specialize in working with us because you live this life. You have for many, many years. Again, you founded First Responder Family Psychology, which you provide culturally competent therapy to first responders. Like it or not, you're kind of my therapist in some regards. I do have another therapist, but it takes a village. Again, we've had a lot of conversations over the years, and Janelle and I were just talking about year in review, and we were just talking about show, and Janelle and I, her being my partner in crime on the show, we talk quite a bit, and the conversations behind the scene with just our guests and obviously with you and amongst ourselves. I think for me hosting this, I want to be as real as possible. And I have not had an easy year when I look at it on paper. Um, I've gone through a relationship challenge and changing relationship this year. I had to put 2 dogs down, as a matter of fact. Lost an aunt. Had some challenges as a first year officer, meaning, an officer finally having my crew, trying to just make sure that I handled everything as well as I could there. I had quite a few pretty, I would say, traumatic, calls. We had a rescue where we pulled someone out of a house in a house fire. I was, first in and had to take command in a mass casualty, active shooter scenario at a school. But all in all, you look at that, I feel pretty comfortable in my own skin. I feel like I'm doing really well, from a lot of different angles. And I've never felt probably more just secure in who I am and what I do. And right, like if I were to say that to you as a therapist, what is your response after the first part and then the follow-up?
Here's what I'm thinking as you're saying this. One, that's a lot. You just kind of brush through it like, yeah, I've been through all these things. Like every single one of those things can have huge impacts. And the fact that you've gathered all these in just the last year, some of them recently, that's a big deal. I'm thinking about resilience, navigating it. And I just already, when you're saying, yeah, I'm feeling okay. Like I'm feeling okay. These were hard, but I'm doing okay. I'm already thinking you must invest in your resilience. You must be doing things for yourself, because a lot of people will hear that and maybe they've gone through just a portion of those things and they're not doing okay. And they're going, well, why is he doing okay? And the first thing people think is that, well, some people are just more resilient, right? Some people, that's just how they were born. They can manage more. They can take on more. And a lot of first responders can take on a lot because they're resilient folks. But what research tells us about resilience is that it is not something you're born with. It's not a special trait. It's something that is flexible and that you could invest in, and you could increase your capacity. And sometimes it's going to be lower than others. It's not the same that it is right now for you, that it will be in 5 years. Things adapt and change, right? And I hear all these big, huge things that could have massive impacts. I'm already thinking you take really good care of yourself.
I try, right? That's what you told me to do. That's why it's important to have you back, right? We have had so many wonderful people on this show that live by that example, and they give us tidbits of information and knowledge. And over the last 2.5 years, and long before that, I did a lot of coaching. I did the fitness and wellness side, but I've really tried to hone in on a lot of things that we talked about, during the shows and behind the scenes. And even though I feel that way, there's still this thing in the back of my head that says, am I really okay? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, and I think that's natural, correct? Mm-hmm. And what, so elaborate on that. How do I really know I'm doing okay?
Yeah. Well, okay. If you're open to chatting about it, there are
very much so.
Okay. There are 4 areas that we have some really solid research about it impacting our resilience, right? And so it's not that you're doing all of these wonderfully, maybe you are, but sometimes we're better at ones than others. But it's just good to think about, because, if you're that person like you, where you're driven to be, I want to make myself better, I want to do more, then it's good to think about what else can I be doing, or what am I doing that works well so that I could keep doing it. So the first area of that is healthy thinking. Okay. And so to think about healthy ways of thinking can be challenging, especially in moments of stress, especially in moments of challenge, because what happens when something comes at us that we're frustrated with, the natural response is oftentimes to think about all the things we're frustrated with, all those things outside of our control that are upsetting to us, right? Firefighters talk about this stuff all the time.
Every
around
morning.
The table.
Yeah.
Does Right. Does anyone sit down and talk about how well things are going, or do they focus on all the things outside of their control?
Yeah. I'm glad you started with that because Janelle and I actually had a really good discussion about this a couple days ago. Like right now with as we're airing and talking about this, there's a lot going on. There's been a plane crash. There's some transitions within government, and right. Janelle, remember that you were telling me you're like, oh, I got sucked into this story. I got sucked into this whole thing, and it kind of like what you said. You're just like, ah. I know better, but you wasted a little energy on it. We all do that, right? Janelle, do you remember what I'm talking
Yes.
about?
Oh yeah, it's so easy to spiral sometimes when one thing goes on happens and then another thing, and there's been a lot in 2025
Hmm.
already in terms
Already.
of huge news events, and this is part of what we do here at Fire Rescue One. We cover the news. And so it's really hard to disconnect from that at times. And it's easy to go down the rabbit hole. And I was telling you, I was listening to a podcast that was like literally called like when everything feels like too much. Like how can you disconnect and how can you kind of recenter? And it's hard to do. It takes a lot of intention.
And it's also
Yes.
what firefighters do. You respond to terrible events, people's worst day, right? People don't call you to come celebrate, a moment with them. So it's like your brain is kind of naturally drawn to what's wrong,
Yeah.
what's not going well, because that is what we respond to. But when we focus on those things in moments of stress, which you're naturally going to do it, but the game is how quickly can you come back from here's all the things out of my control to what can I control?
Yeah.
And focus on
Well,
that, right? So it takes time, but it's like, how quickly can you bounce back from that?
yeah. I think the biggest thing that I've focused on this year, and I really hope people listen to this part of it because it's a simple thing, and I believe you and I had talked about it quite a few times, and I finally have applied myself to this is gratitude. Every day I write one thing, and it might be a note in my phone. It might be I actually have a journal, and sometimes I forget the journal, so I'll note it down. And uh, it's it's not an easy thing to do. And what I've noticed now, I've been doing this for about a year and a half, and I don't doom scroll as much. Like I don't go to the Insta suck because it puts me in a bad mood. It puts me in this place where my mind goes, oh, you should be doing this, or what about that, or who's doing this, um, and that gratitude seems to come back, or helps me come back. And I'm glad you said that because right there's science now. You're talking
Yes.
about science here,
Yes.
and so I think to any firefighter, right, to anybody, it start with a little bit of gratitude, and I find that one thing even at the table can switch the whole mindset of the
Yes.
table at some point too. It's not easy, but that's so as far as like kind of confirming, all right, I am doing pretty well because that's how I start my day.
Let me give you an example of thoughts and where they could go, right? Critical incident, right? You've responded to some terrible calls, right?
Yeah.
Not everything goes exactly how you want it to on those
Oh God,
calls
no.
ever, right? And you sit and you ruminate and you think about what I could have done if only they would have, if I would have got, it's the would haves and the could haves and the should haves. And all of those things are completely outside of our control because it didn't happen and it's no longer a part of us, right? So if you sit, and I get it, first responders sit there and they think about it, and it's part of what makes you great because you want to improve. But sometimes people go down a rabbit hole that never ends. And all they do is keep thinking about it over and over again for an extended period of time. And what that does is creates a lot of stress in us, more stress, because it's something that we can't control, but yet we're focused on it. So when you can come back to, well, what can I do now? Can I train on it? Do I need to take care of myself? Do I need to talk to somebody about it? What's my attitude on it? We don't have control over a lot. It's like us. That's all we can control in this world.
Right.
But sometimes we get focused on everything outside of us. So that, for one, is those who are more resilient. Research shows that those who bounce back quicker come to what can I control quicker than others. Those who stand in those ruminating thoughts have a lot harder time bouncing back.
I think that this is one area where Aaron deserves a lot of credit, because when we've talked after the school shooting, I could, I mean, it's so hard to not immediately go to, like, you know, we're all about improvement, right? What could I have done better? What didn't work perfectly? But I saw, like, in real time, basically, like, Aaron shifting to the positive, and
Mhm,
he was thinking about all the things that went right, and he was so
mhm,
proud of his crew,
mhm,
and getting, I mean, I hope it's okay to share this, but, like, watching him get choked up and emotional, focusing on, not only there's the tragedy side of it, but also the pride that he felt in his crew. And I think
mhm,
that's like a really important mindset
mhm,
shift that shows, like, Aaron's been working on resilience. He's like putting it into practice, what you've been talking about. And
mhm.
it's like how long, right? It's like shortening the amount of time it takes to get there to that more positive uh,
And
mindset around something like
And I'd
that.
say that it's pretty common, I think, for first responders for it to take off down, I could have done more. And oftentimes it turns into unhealthy thinking. It's no longer useful and it's actually eating away at them. They can't sleep. They're drinking thoughts. They're irritable all day long, right? They're unfocused. So I think that it's just really it's something to pay attention to. Healthy thinking, right? In moments of stress, challenge, critical incident, how do we get back to what can I control now?
Totally. And I have a question for you, Sam. After that happened with, when you were focusing on the positive, was that something that just came really naturally to you because you have really worked hard on resilience? Or was it something where you had to, like, literally consciously think, stop thinking about the negative, shift, focus on the positive? Was it like subconscious or more conscious?
I think it's both, right? Like, gratitude's a muscle. You got to work it. That's the way I look at it. And since I've been doing it, it's actually a lot. It seems to be a lot easier for me to shift. I'll tell you
Mm-hmm.
when it's not easy is when I'm tired after sleep, a sleep deprived day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've my one of my he's a good friend of mine. He's my driver. Love him to death. Him and I will ruminate about some calls, and I remember looking at him going, I know you're tired, buddy, because you can't, right? Because it just kept going. It just is a circle. And so to answer your question, I think because of just saying, hey, every morning I'm exercising this gratitude muscle. I think it was it still has to be, I still have to think about it, right? I still have to focus on it and say, all right, now's the time I need to flip this because I'm going down this
Mm-hmm.
insta suck, because I think it's the same when you start scrolling on your phone, right? You just start wasting time and losing energy. I think you can do the same thing
In
on
the
the
news.
negativity of certain situations.
But
Yeah, and the
it's
news.
also counterintuitive because there's like the dopamine hits you get from all sorts of activities, including scrolling on your phone. Like,
Yeah,
there's an initial physiological positive surge, right? But over time, it wears you down. Like, I'm not a scientist.
yeah,
Obviously, I'm not
but
explaining this perfectly, but I think it just gets confusing because we think we're turning to our phone, right, for a release or a moment of relaxation, but it's actually having a detrimental effect,
But also, what are
yeah,
you
I
following?
agree.
Some people could follow
right?
really positive motivational speakers, workouts, nutrition, and it is positive stuff.
This
Or are you
podcast,
following the
podcast,
news
by the way,
stories?
please.
No, this
This
podcast
podcast.
is wonderful.
Yes.
Or are you following news stories and all the terrible things that happen and you're consumed by those and clicking on those, right? So it's your choice. You have choice. In moments of stress, we're here to talk about resilience. In moments of hardship and stress, you can choose. You can choose where your thoughts go. You can choose to use gratitude. You can choose to focus on what you did right, what your crew did right. It's like those are things that you can choose. You can also choose the opposite, and it's not helpful, you know? And
Yeah.
Zam, you tapped into the next one. If we're ready to move on to the next one that I was going
Yeah.
to talk about,
Yeah.
which is healthy living. We have research on how the physical things that we're doing definitely impact our ability to manage stress. right? We manage stress better. Sleep is huge. How much harder it is to manage your emotions, to manage, your irritability, to have healthy thinking, to think of the positive things, to be in a good mood. Like, it's so hard to stay motivated when you have this sleep deprivation, right? Not to mention, we just don't cope with life. We don't make as good of decisions when we are not we don't have a good amount of sleep under us, right? So that's another thing. It sounds like you've been investing in, because that's where I would start.
Well, and I think I have to thank you a little bit for this too, because we are some of our previous conversations about, relationships and just, me in general. And I think I could speak for a lot of us in the firefighters and first responders that do 24-hour shifts. We just say, no, it's not affecting me because I'm going to run through this. And what's been really cool, I think over the last couple of years with experts like yourself and what we do with FRCE, First Responder Center of Excellence, really focusing on the mental health and the sleep and it all interplays. And I'll say my first couple of years in the fire service, I just said, all you had to do is work out. Just get moving. Just doesn't matter. 2 hours of sleep, go get a good workout in. And look, I've learned over that, like maybe a walk is fine. You do need some activity, but you need to gauge the intensity of your workouts. You need to start at least looking at the big picture. I find with me and a lack of sleep, it's you're just what you hit. I'm more irritable. I'm less patient. I reach for a lot more sweets. Tequila sometimes too. People know, if they know me, they know I like tequila and ice cream. And yeah, I do it together sometimes. But obviously, when I'm more tired, I'm more likely to just kind of to reach for those things. So the last 2 years, a couple of things that I think really have helped me is, one, I'm just understanding sleep. I have a Whoop and a Fitbit. I try to see which one works the best. And what those things do is they tell me where I'm at. How well did I sleep? One of the coolest things I learned right away was I went out, had a couple of drinks, and the next day, like my Whoop basically just said, how many drinks did you have? It didn't even ask me. It showed in the sleep. And, not that I don't. Every once in a while I think, hey, you have to be human and still have fun and do something, but just understand how it affects you. I'm coming off of a shift that I didn't get a lot of sleep, and I took about 15, 20 minutes and just reset because I was feeling rushed. I was feeling impatient. So it does take work. Like I started gauging it, and sometimes there's nothing you can do, right? Like I know I'm tired. I could take a nap, but I think understanding that and realizing I'm maybe not at my best, so I need to take a break, or I need to take a breath, or I need to understand how it's affecting, how I am at the podcast, how I am talking to people, how I am, it's just in regular relationships. It does take recognition.
And what I want to point out, because we're talking about resilience, is if someone's in your situation, right, where it's like, man, I have had things stacked on me. What people tend to do when they're stressed out is they lean away from healthy living, right? They eat more ice cream, their nutrition goes down, they stop working out. People lean away and they get back to it when things aren't as, but research shows us that sleep, physical activity help us manage stress. It helps our resilience. It builds that up. So what we need to do is reverse our thought around that. We have to lean into those things. When you are under moments of stress, or you're like, boy, things are being thrown at me left and right, or I just did this critical incident, so here's what I need to do. For these next 2 weeks, I need to take the best care of myself that I can. I need to eat healthy. I drink water. I need to move. And if I can do those things, you will come out better on the other side.
Absolutely. 100%. I hear everything you're saying. But the reality is it's so hard to do that in the moment. And Sam and I were talking about this the other day because, there's Resilient 50 and, having the habits that you build. And the reality is sometimes, okay, maybe it feels a little overwhelming to do all 5 of the healthy habits. So maybe it's a couple of them. And then you work it back in, and it's baby steps, and you don't just throw it all away.
I can't get a workout in. My life doesn't allow me. It's like movement in any way, right? I'm just going to go play with the kids more. Or I'm going to take this phone call, walk around my house out. Like it can be baby steps, but what I want people to know is that there is the power and control that you have around your resilience in this moment. Try and lean into healthy habits.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. No, and you're so right. Like, bottom line is like lean into the healthy stuff. Sam, when we were talking about this the other day, did you find yourself backing off of your habits, or did you lean into them? I know we talk about like the 80-20, 60-40 and
Yeah.
like different approaches. Like, what did you find yourself doing?
Well, and I think that why I was so excited just to talk to Dr. Z, and so far, like, you're making me feel a lot better, Dr. Z, about doing the right things, because like I said, over the last couple of years, I've really tried to take to heart what you've said and a lot of our guests. And, I've basically got a backstage, kind of mentoring course every single time I do a podcast about what people were. And here, these elements are all the same, right? We talked about fitness, and I've dedicated, and I started last year, first of the year, where we've come up with this. We did an R50 challenge. We call it Resilient 50. It's you choose 5 habits for 50 days. And Janelle, what I think, just to confirm what you're saying too, is those habits, we originally started, you got to drink so much water, you got to do so many steps, you got to do this. And we've actually backed off on that. And we said, look, just do 5 things that are going to give you momentum, that are going to help you get through your day. So if it's, drinking 60 ounces of water where you're not drinking any, but the whole thing about, all right, you might just do all the water at one point, but that one accomplishment, it's like making your bed, right? You make your bed in the morning, it leads to another accomplishment. It leads to another accomplishment. Mm-hmm. I've listened to a lot of motivational speakers, and some of them, a lot of them like a cold shower, because they program their brain to do something that they're uncomfortable with. Mm-hmm. And then the next uncomfortable thing that you meet in the day isn't so hard. So to answer your question, my mindset over the last couple of years has changed to, how do I become my best self? And what do I need to do to become my best self? Now, my mom, if she's listening to this, she will laugh and go, if I don't work out, if I don't, eat, she'll call me on the phone and she'll go she'll know after I say, hi, Mom, she'll go, you need to go get your workout in. I'll talk to you later. And then she'll hang up on me. I'm like, what the hell is going on? But she's right. Like, and Dr. Z, you hit it right on the head. And I think, Janelle and I have talked about this too. 30 minutes of activity every single day. And right away, people go, I can't work out 30 minutes a day. It's not what we said. 30 minutes of activity a day. Go play with your kids for 30 minutes. Go walk your dog. Go walk Georgie for 30 minutes a day. Stretch. If you stand up at your desk and you do a couple of different stretches 3 or 4 times a day, believe it or not, all of a sudden you're into 15, 20 minutes. And then you just walk around the firehouse twice. Meditation. I suck at meditation, but there are times, like even before this program, my secret weapon is I have a little massage chair, and that I focus on some deep breathing. Am I good at it? No. People look at me and they're like, he's napping. Well, I'm trying. So, to answer your question, Janelle, and I think it's being confirmed by what Dr. Z is saying, is I have these 5 core things that I do every single day. So I'm 70 ounces of water a day, 30 minutes of exercise. I do gratitude. I do 10 minutes of something mental, and it's usually Duolingo, because I get that check box on it. And then I just try 1 minute of deep breathing right now. But I've changed it. Every 50 days, I kind of change it and upgrade it a little bit. And after the last couple of months of going through some of these things, it was it's really nice to confirm based on science. I just knew that's what I needed to do that day. I needed to take care of those 5 things and let the rest kind of come into play, because I knew that's what I could control.
So the next one, now research has demonstrated that we are social creatures. We are connected biologically. We want to be social. We want to connect with others. When we are in moments of challenge, if we're talking about resilience, we need people who we can talk to, we can open up, share something with, even if they don't know how to help us. Just having a network that we can confide in actually helps us be more resilient. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be a community. It could be church. It could be people you like to ride your bikes with. You just need community. So I ask you, going through all of this stuff, do you have legitimate relationships that you can just talk to about it, talk about the stressors, and actually allow them to support you in those moments? Because sometimes it's hard not to be the one helping. It's just like, allowing people to support you.
Yeah, I have you guys. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I joke, but I do. I think my crew too. We're pretty open to talking, and that helps a lot. I think that's a big difference between police and fire, right? Fire, we go back and we live together, and we talk about it, and I think that helps. I'm very lucky. I have you guys. I have this program, and it's really been like, to me, and maybe this helps with gratitude, is because everybody that I talk to, and during the last couple of months, like the number of text messages and people that have reached out, it's genuine too, right? And when you first said, you're like, yeah, we like to go home and just be by ourselves, do our thing, and have our people, right? Like, I wholeheartedly agree with that. But I've also tried to, when I do talk to people, connect. And I'll say, and I don't know where I got this from. Chief Salka, as a matter of fact, I remember said once, he's like, I like the idea of having 30 minutes no phone time in the firehouse. And that's got me to focus on myself. Like, when I communicate with people, and I'll tell you, like, I used to be like, I'd talk to people and then I'd be looking at my phone. And I've just tried to, at dinner or times where I'm talking to people, I'll put my phone where I can't see it and where they can't see it. And to me, that I believe that helps. I believe it helps me connect. And maybe it's something that we all need to start doing a little bit more. And it kind of sounds like what it confirms that, right? Like,
yeah.
And I know, like, I have ADD just like the rest of the fire service probably does too. So I am paying attention, even though I'm reading something else. But I just think that I'm paying attention, but I'm not connecting.
People don't open up as much. Other people won't open up as much if you're looking down. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just, then all of a sudden I just feel like I'm being more engaged. And then, of course, like you're saying, they reciprocate that. So, that connection needs to happen.
Well, and on the flip side of that, though, like, after the shooting, your phone was blowing up. People were reaching out to you, asking if you were okay, offering help. And that's the positive side, right, of the phone, is like seeing all that outpouring of love. And you had a lot of people, I know, just from you and I talking one-on-one, reaching out and, being a support system for you, people who had been through this similar critical incidents. And that's really where the power of connection is just so fantastic in the fire service.
Well, I just, on that note, I just start thinking about firefighters that are going through, we're doing, pulseless non-breathers, we're doing, compressions on kids, and people are dying all around us, and we're trying to do all those things. And one of the things that I thought was, and it kind of gets me choked up, is just how it takes this really traumatic, bad incident, and how much support is great. But what I take from that is, man, how much did that meant to me? And I'm just going to try to pay it forward. Even it doesn't have to be a traumatic incident, right? Like, hey, I heard you guys, rough day yesterday, to me. And so far, like, I've tried to reach out to a couple people that I haven't heard from in a while. They reached out to me, and it started a great connection again. And so I think, I just want to reciprocate all that. And it didn't, I guess I didn't really, I just think in the fire service, how can we make the fire service better? It's just to do that on the regular with each other, because it really meant a lot to me. And now if I can transfer that to somebody else, I can maybe help them get through a bad week that they didn't know they were having, or I didn't know they were having,
There are so many people out there who they're so uncomfortable with letting other people support them, right? And firefighters I'm talking
Yeah.
about, right? They won't even talk to their own spouses about things, right? Or best friends. Best friends might reach out, hey man, what are you doing? And so if anyone is out there listening, we have higher rates of suicide and all these things. Is people are stuck. They're feeling lonely and alone with the things that they're holding on to. And so this is a part of resilience. It's building a network and allowing other people to support you and reaching out. That best friend who calls you, call them and say, man, I got to talk about what happened yesterday. And even if they could have zero advice for you, just talking to somebody who cares about you, that is help. So I just want people to think about, if life is coming down on you and things are tough and you feel like there's no one I can talk to, there are people you can, there's peer support, there's therapists, there's friends, there's family members, there's a partner if you have one or not. It's like people want to help you. Sometimes it's just allowing it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I help. Call me, text me, or send me an email. I mean, honestly, I've had some really great conversations in workout rooms with firefighters at conferences that have just been like, I walked out of there going, man, what an unbelievable thing that we just got to do, is connect and bond. And I think, as you're saying this, one thing that really, as I reflect, I shouldn't say I lost my ego. It's like Dr. Evil took my mojo, but I just, a couple of years ago, I guess when this program started, and I can't remember who had said it, and I've read it in so many places, but I just feel like, look, I'm 50 years old. This is who I am. I am not going to be, this statue of strength or this, right? Like, I'm not going to play in the NBA. I'm not going to go to the NFL. I'm who I am, and I'm comfortable with that, and take me for who I am. But it's all because I kind of lost my ego. Mm-hmm. I think, from the workout room to, I don't know everything, to, this shit bothers me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I get choked up over stupid songs. I could watch the movie Cars and cry. I'm like, what the hell is going on? That's all part of this, right? And I guess another message is, once you start feeling a little bit more grateful, once you start moving more, once you start connecting with people, I would beg and plead for you to just lose the ego, please, somehow, because it has really opened up a lot of doors for me. And I just, mm-hmm. I don't wake up going, well, who do I need to be today? I just wake up and go, this is who I am. I'm going to try to get a little bit better. And if I can make everybody else around me a little bit better, that's a good day. If I cry, great. I know I'm going to laugh. I'm a firefighter. I get to go to the firehouse. That's a given, and that's something you got to be grateful for. But I think, and that I think it confirms kind of what you're talking about, right? When you lose your ego, it's a lot easier to connect, and it's a lot easier to take some help, Mm-hmm.
So connection to meaning and purpose, and feeling connected to something bigger than us, actually helps us move through stress, right? And hardship and challenges. If we can turn that somehow into, like, there's something greater and meaning, I have purpose, this gives us resilience, right? We can bounce back quicker. You're here talking about all your stuff. There's a thing happened to me, but I can turn it into something. I can talk to other people about it and they can learn from it and we can help, right? That's purpose. Firefighting is a purposeful job. There is so much purpose behind it, but people lose that along the way and they start focusing on every call and how hard it is, and this, and more tragedy, and more tragedy, and more tragedy. And they lose sight of what that big purpose is, of why they came into it. So those who can stay connected to meaning and purpose in their life, find they can bounce back quicker to things. You go to a big call and it's not about, this went wrong and I'm focused on it. It's, I'm glad we were there when we were because of this, and how that was purposeful in this way, right? This is why retirement is so hard. People lose their attachment to meaning and purpose. So it's finding that, whatever it is. If it's something even bigger than that, why are you doing this? What is pulling you through?
So if somebody's kind of struggling right now, right? They're like, I don't even know what my purpose is right now. I'm not grateful. I can't even find anything to be grateful for, right? Like, I think you need to see a professional at that point, I think. Right. And so full disclosure, have some great relationships. And one of my chiefs kind of he said, are you seeing somebody like your counselor? And I said, yep, I'm going back. Right. And the way that I started, the episode was how I, started my last therapy session. And, right. It's always good to talk to somebody about it and to try to help, right, kind of guide to find that purpose, to figure out what you can control. But so what if somebody's stuck? What would you say to them?
Well, let's talk about like the red flags. Like, so we've talked about these 4 categories, right? Healthy thinking,
Yep.
healthy living, connection to people, connection to purpose. And you kind of stopped on this last one. It's like, oh, if you don't feel like you have purpose, like that's probably a red flag. If any of those are like failing in that way, right? Healthy thinking, I can't stop. Now I'm not sleeping. Now I'm not, right? Healthy living, I'm not making any positive decisions for myself. I'm actually leaning on poor coping skills, right? I'm drinking more. I'm doing these things that don't serve me well. Connection to people. I'm not connected to anyone. I won't talk to anyone. I'm isolated. Any of these in kind of these extreme forms, just one of them alone, talk to someone. It doesn't have to be a therapist, but start reaching out, right? These are signs that we need a little bit extra help, and there's no shame in that. So I think those are red flags there. And then we've talked quite a lot about critical incidents, especially when you've been on. And I wanted to point out a resource that anyone can use. It's available online. The National Fallen Firefighters Foundation actually has this out. It's called the Trauma Screening Questionnaire. And it's super simple. I'm looking at it right now. It's about 10 questions. And Janelle, I know you're going to put this in the notes for people so they can see it later. But 3 to 4 weeks out of a critical incident that occurs, that is when this is meant to look over, right? A couple of weeks out, sometimes we still be processing things and going through them, and maybe sleep is still hard, or it's hard to get these thoughts out of your head, but expect for some things to be clearing up, right? So you could hand that to your crew 3 or 4 weeks after you just went through this with your crew. Email this. Hey, you don't have to talk to anybody about it, but look at this list, and if 6 of these things are coming up, the directions are on there. Here's our resources. Reach out. I don't have to know about it. Take care of yourself.
Yeah. Well, no, that's going to go to my crew and some of those people that have been on some of these responses. And I totally appreciate that, because that was one of my next questions. Is I feel like I'm doing really well now, but how? And that's why I feel like, obviously I'm very fortunate to be able to have direct connect to you sometimes. But I do think that you do need to continue, right? It's just like, I can't do this work just the next 50 days. Or the next 5 days. It's got to be a journey, right? And counseling, my plan is just to keep doing it. I think every first responder needs to do it once or twice a year, regardless, because sometimes it's good to get that extra set of eyes, right? That extra voice. And maybe in this case, hey, I am doing a lot of the right things. I can focus a little bit more on some more than others, but right, like there's nothing wrong with that either. Like that gives you the confidence, and then obviously then helps me pay it forward, that we're giving people the right things to do, and we're taking care of each other. Right. Like, so thank you so much. I mean, as always, an hour goes by, I feel so much better. And I'm like, well, let's bring you back on again. Right. So what else did we miss in this? And give me some things that I should continually look for.
I think I want to say, you come on, you say, all these things happen, but I'm feeling okay. And then we go down this list and you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. I try really hard. I implement this in my life. That's why I'm saying this is why you're resilient, right? It's not like you were born with it. You are making choices every day that help you stay on top of these things. It is hard to do. It is not an easy feat. There are so many firefighters out there that are not making any of these choices, right? And so when the stress piles, they feel at a loss. But I just want them to know you can start anywhere. Know that you have the power to choose these things, right? And you can, little by little, build up more of your resilience, right? And get in a better place. And there's always help. You can always reach out. It's never too late to ask for help to do these things. So makes a lot of sense to me. You are navigating a lot of these challenges. And sometimes there's the straw that broke the camel's back on the other end. People go, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. And then one more thing happens. They're like, and it's just like your coping skills are overwhelmed. It doesn't mean it's not going to come back. You get the help you need. You start doing some of these things, and then you'll find your feet back on the floor again. Right. So I want to give people hope that there's things, in their power that they can do.
Yeah. And as Janelle and I were talking about it, I said, I want to get Dr. Z back on, and I want to just go through some of the things, because I really feel like I've known these things build resilience. And over the years, like, I've talked about them. And maybe this goes into losing the ego, feeling a little more confident and comfortable, because I feel like I've kind of, I built the resume now. I know this stuff works. Yeah. I'm proof that it works. And I don't know if I would have been able to get through it without the people that are around me, without having those habits set. And so for those that are listening to us, if you are going through anything, trust me, it's hard. Some days it's really hard. There's been times it's been 9:00 at night and I just went for a walk outside because I knew I needed it. I didn't get my exercise in. I've chugged some water late at night, but I've done Duolingo at 11:59, but I got it in that day. But it's really transferred, I think. And that's why I appreciate you so much for coming on, and Janelle for all the support too behind the scenes and making a lot of this stuff happen and being a great sounding board for me through this. And so just trying to transfer that onto you guys listening.
You're under more stress than the average person. You experience more trauma than the average person. So your crew, you should, and your friends and your peer support, everybody should be implementing these things.
Well, thank you. Well, we normally do hot seat questions, but I think this has been a pretty in-depth episode. But the reason I wanted you on, the reason why we love having you is because, like I said, I feel better about myself. I feel like I'm doing the right things. Not that it makes it easier to do the right things, but it's great to confirm these small little habits every single day really transfer to better resilience. And it's all about being better, right? So let me ask you, I'm going to start with you, Dr. Z. What are you working on to get better personally?
Yeah, so I am currently really focused on my physical activity and hydration. That for me kicked off at the beginning of the year. I feel really great about that. In gratitude, I was just walking my kids home from school the other day, and I find myself thinking about the checklist and everything I need to do. And I like a moment, it's like the sun's out, they're scootering, like, what a beautiful day. I'm going to take a moment and just focus on this, like 1 minute. But it was like, let me just be present, right? So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Good. And it's not easy, is it?
No, it is so much scheduling and how do we fit this in and I got to go get this in and we didn't do this. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get my workout in these next 2 days. I've got family that I want to see. It's like, we have to try and make time for everything. It is not easy. We have to make decisions all the time that it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to fit in, but it's important.
It's about making decisions and those priorities, making good decisions based on those priorities. Mm-hmm. And so Janelle, I'm throwing you right into this too, because I need you. You're my partner in crime here. What are you doing to, after this, and what are you doing and working on to get better?
Sleep has been a big one for me in the new year. I've been working really hard on trying to wind down earlier, figure out some strategies that work for me, my family, and it's been working well. It's been working well. So far so good. I would like to say I want to follow your lead and Dr. Z's lead in terms of like just the great advice about when life gets crazy and busy and stressful, leaning into the healthy thinking way of life, because I definitely tend to be guilty of the like, oh, everything is so hard right now, so I guess all the good habits are out the window, which is the opposite of how I should be thinking. So I'm going to try and follow your lead on that. So that'll be what I'm working on.
All right. Well, and we're not alone. You guys are not alone. I still, I have my 5 for 50, but one of them is to connect more. And connecting just with those that are in front of me and being more present. But I also want to connect more with the listeners. So if you as a listener have some things you want to work on, you can email me at bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. You can email Janelle. If you have questions for Dr. Z, we could take those at bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. What are you going to work on? What are you guys working on as listeners to be better? That'll help us in a couple of different ways. How can we help support you be better in those journeys? I'd love to hear about it because it's really, we're in this together. We also have the R50 challenge. You can go to, we'll leave the link there, but we rewrote that a little bit based on what we did last year. You're going to choose 5 things that you know are going to help you be more resilient. You're going to do them for 50 days. You do that, we got a nice challenge coin for you, all for free, all for being our listeners, because we're in it for you. We're in it together. And again, Better Every Shift is about being better. If you don't believe me, you can see it in my eyes, the passion in my eyes. You can see me get a little teared up. You can see the wonderful smiles on Janelle and Dr. Z's faces. You can go to our YouTube channel. You can go to the firerescue1.com, click on the Better Every Shift, watch us in video. Please share this episode. Please rate and review us. Again, send us an email with your questions, bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com, and let us know what you're working on. Are we on to something here on the show, or are we on something? And with all the great things that Dr. Z taught us and told us and shared with us, it's all comes down to what the program is about: learning something, doing something, moving something, and sharing something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.